Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good whatever time of day it is. Thank you for tuning in to Conversations with Dr. Don. And for your first-time viewers, Conversations with Dr. Don is an ongoing series of one-hour standalone talk shows where I interview interesting people like most of you out there about who they are as unique, one-of-a-kind individuals, and about whatever it is that we have decided to talk about. Tonight, my guest is Jacyno, who I've known for quite some time, and we've seen each other in the gym and talked about working out and all sorts of things passing. And finally, it occurred to me, you better come on this show. You got so many different things that are interesting about you. And he agreed. So here we are.
I had no choice, Don. You were so persuasive.
Pardon. Boy, that's a...
You're getting over the flu also, aren't you?
Yes, yes. I don't think I'm infectious anymore, as long as I cover my cough.
Mm-hmm. Well, I've had it for a month, so I hope I'm resistant to everything.
Oh,
I get it from my grandkids.
really?
Yeah, they bring all the latest strains home. Whatever's new, they bring it to Grandpa. They come and they kiss me, and they sneeze right in my face, and I love it. I love
Don't make me laugh, John.
I'm sorry.
You're delightful. Yeah. So, do you remember how long ago we first met about in the gym?
It's been
Years,
a while. We used to go to Did you go to Bally's when it was across the street from Jesuit?
Yeah, I'd been there a couple of times.
Okay, and that's maybe when I met you, and then we met when Bally's moved over there to Nimbus.
Nimbus, yeah.
And then over here now at LA Fitness, and I go in there for a
no
little
more
bit of
commercial
workout.
names.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay. Hey, how would you know? I didn't tell you how to
You
do it.
didn't.
But
I'll be careful.
yeah. So you like the gym you're going to now?
I do.
Mm-hmm.
I do. My membership carried over from the old place. It's affordable, and I like the place. I like the people that run the place. It's clean, and it's got a nice 30-yard pool, which I use all the time. Last 3 years, I've had several small strokes, and that it left me with some physical issues.
Really?
And I was in quite a bit of pain, and I just found this out. You're a veteran, and you get your health care up at the VA. Yeah, that's where I go.
Last night I was there till the wee hours of the morning.
I heard you. Yeah, I've been through that emergency room, a couple of times, and I have to say, I know we're not going to use anything commercial here, but the VA is sure.
You better believe it.
They do a bang up job up
medicine.
there. Yeah, well, that's what it is, socialized medicine.
It's so. Talking about how good that socialized medicine is at the VA, they're so delightful and so funny. And I decided to go in when it was the wee hours of the morning when it wouldn't be so crowded, because they were really overflowing with flu patients, and there are not many people around. And everyone who works there has a sense of humor. And the guy who took my blood from my hand, and when he was wrapping it up after, nice in his whole. And I said to him, the last time someone held my hand so gently, he kissed me. He reaches over
and plants a kiss on you.
Hilarious. And he kept trying to kiss me.
Well,
They're
seems
just delightful.
Yeah.
But they have to, I guess, dealing with all sorts of old crotchety old men with varying degrees.
When you go to the VA now and you walk into the main lobby and you just kind of look around, and there's that type, they're all Vietnam. There are probably some from the Korean War, because you hear them, because they'll be telling stories about the Korean War. I haven't heard any World War II veterans up there, but I'm sure that they are. But most of them are Vietnam veterans, and you're seeing a lot more. You're seeing a lot more of the young kids coming back with problems, and that kind of hurts a little bit. You know, you're seeing the cost of our foreign policy.
Yes.
You know, I'm there for the absolutely same reason, because I was part of a foreign policy that required me to be drafted and go into the service, because they weren't getting enough volunteers. This is back in 1967. So you're drafted. You know, you go. You have no choice. You know, and you go and you do your duty. I remember coming back. I was stationed in Aberdeen Proving Grounds, which is in Maryland, which is pretty close to New York, which is where I grew up, and I had just come down on levy to Vietnam. That was the term that the Army used. It was basically, you made the list. You know, you went up to the bulletin board.
Let's stop a minute and get the basics out of the way first, so people have an idea who you are personally as we talk about this visit. And it's going to be easy hanging out with you. Your name is John Jacyno.
Yeah, Jacyno is one of the ways people pronounce it. The way I pronounce it is Jacyno, but Jacyno is good. Jacyno. Yeah.
Where's that name come from?
Jacyno. Jacyno is a Polish name, and it's pronounced Jacyno. And both my mom and my dad were born in Poland, which makes me Polish too. I was born in Germany, though. Born in Germany in 1947, because that's where my parents were at the time. They were there through a good portion of the war. Both of them were there as slave labor.
Slave labor?
Slave labor, which meant that one day the Nazis arrived at the village where my mom and my dad didn't know each other at that time. They arrived there at the village, and they got the village burgermeister or the mayor, whatever he was called, and they said, we want a list of all the people living in the village, and all a list of husbands, wives, children, you know. And they said, we need one person from every single family, and you have 2 days to gather all this stuff up. And my mom was really not the one that was going to go. It was her sister that was going to go. She was chosen, and the father chose the sister, and she didn't want to go. She was so scared. And my mom, who was at that time 15 years old, she was brave. She said, this is going to be an adventure. You know, it is, I mean, they came from abject poverty. You know, when we see pictures of abject poverty here in America, we look at Appalachia and the people living in wooden, you know, structures, 2-room structures. Well, this is where my mom came. The kind of place that my mom lived was brought up, and I had the opportunity in 1975 to go back there for the first time and see exactly, you know, where she was born. But I digress. 2 days later, she was on a I believe it was a bus to a train, and then over to Germany, where for a good amount of the war she worked as the German word is Putzfrau, which is a cleaning woman. You know, all the workers lived in barracks, and in the morning they would get up and go to their respective jobs. Well, somebody would have to take and that was her job. I mean, that was you know, what else is a 15-year-old girl going to do?
I speak up a little bit because you're so soft-spoken.
Okay, I'll give it a little bit. I've had that same flu, so.
Oh yes, and we'll be okay.
Good. My dad was the same way, except his abject poverty was even worse than my mom's. You know, his dad died when he was a young man. As a result, he was the oldest in the family. He had to support the family. And I remember him telling me the stories. He said, John, the thing that occupied my mind all the time was, from the time I got up to the time I went to sleep, was how am I going to get enough food for my mom? I believe he had 2 sisters and 2 brothers. So that's from the age of 13. I think he had maybe a 2nd or 3rd grade education. My mom probably maybe a little bit more. Anyway, they wound up in Germany as fate would have it. I got met there in the camps. I was born in a camp called Wildflecken, which was
born in the camp.
In the camp, it was a DP camp, displaced persons camp. If you know anything about the history of World War II, after it was over, there were millions of displaced people all over Europe.
Sure.
And what are you going to do with them? The Russians knew what they wanted to do with their people. They wanted them back. In fact, the camp that I was in, we had Poles there, we had Czechs, we had all different kind of Slavics, and even French, because my mom says she learned a little French there in the camps from them. But the Russians, they kept them separate, and they all got packed on the trains, and they got shipped back to Russia. They had no choice as to where they're going. My parents at least had a choice. At that time, the choice was free immigration to Australia. Australia wanted people. They, once again, this is back in 1950 now, they wanted to build up their population, and Canada was the other place that you could go, and they had free immigration, but not the United States. The United States had a little stricter policy. Mm-hmm. You had to apply. Mm-hmm. You had to apply. Somebody had to sponsor you. Somebody had to set you up with a job. And somebody had to set you up with an apartment. So when you came here, came to New York, which was where we landed up, you wouldn't be just thrown out to the wolves, so to speak. Mm-hmm. You had a place. There was some money involved, and in 1950, in March of 1950, we landed on the shores of the United States of America. You don't.
A whole new world.
Whole new world. There are different things in your life. Your life is a course, is a straight line, and every once in a while you get bumped. And it doesn't take much. It just takes a little bit. We were lucky. My dad had an aunt, and he tried for over 4 years. It took 4 years to get the paperwork necessary to get us to the United States. Anyway, we got here, and this was the start of our American dream. And here's Mom, Dad. I was 3 at the time. My sister, Ursula, 1.5. I think, for a few years, Dad ran a little black marketing. Everybody was doing black marketing because that's how you survived. There was nothing else to do. It's not like that you go to a factory and go to work. You had to, you bought an apple for 5 cents and you sold it for 7 cents.
And you remember that?
I don't remember that. These are stories that my mom told me.
Oh, okay, yeah.
They remembered that. So my dad bought a few dollars with him to the United States. I think my mom said about 50. Now in Germany, that $50 would have gone a long way. $50 in the United States, even back in 1950, didn't go a long way. I mean, that was 2 months' rent. Maybe 3 months' rent. Where's food? Where's clothing? Where's all the other amenities? But he had a great work ethic. My dad had a great work ethic. Same thing with
work ethic.
Work ethic, yes.
Uh-huh.
And he worked hard, saved up. Both my mom and my dad worked. My dad worked in the daytime. My mom worked at night. She was a cleaning lady, and she did that for 50 years. That was her trade. And back then in New York, they belonged to a union. They got their raises and stuff. It was not a bad job. In
Unions.
Fact, yes, it was a plum job. It was a plum job. Now, years ago, my mom says you want to get a job. For instance, cleaning in the Empire State Building. There's a company that does all the cleaning. Sure. Well, you better show up at the interview with some money in your pocket, because those. Yes, that's the way it's turned out to be. In the old days, Mom said all you needed was a friend to say, "Hey, This is my friend. You know, I vouch for her. And they like the Poles because they, just like most people coming out of Europe after the war, had a good work ethic. They'd seen misery in their lives, and they didn't want to go through that again. You know, so they wanted to come in there, and they wanted to work. And
so what kind of religion does your family have?
Well, you know, being Polish, there's only one religion in Poland, and that's Roman Catholic.
I'm just confirming, yeah.
Yes, they're
I
Roman.
was born and raised conservative Roman Catholic in New Orleans.
Well,
Yeah.
then you know exactly the way I was raised.
Yeah. You confirmed and all that stuff?
Oh yes, an altar boy. You were an altar boy. I watched your show the other night, the show where you went back and looked at your Creole heritage.
Yeah.
I watched that. I took the time. I said, I better find out about the show and how it works, and about a little bit about Dr. Don. Anyway, there were several things which I have found that you and I have in common. One of them was, you know, the religion, the Roman Catholicism, and you said that you were an altar boy, and I was an altar boy too. And another great experience. You know, you don't have to be 21 years old to have a great experience. You can have a great experience when you're 6, and when you're 7, and when you're 10, and when you're 12. You know, and it was a great experience. I lived on the Lower East Side of Manhattan. Belonged to a Polish parish, St. Stan's. St. Stan's B&M. Polish would be Biskupa i Męczennika, which means bishop and martyr. St. Stanislaus, B&M, bishop and martyr. And Felician nuns taught us in the school, and for some reason, in the 2nd grade, one of the nuns took a liking to me. She said, "John, you have to be an altar boy. All you have to do is learn these 2 sheets of Latin, Latin stuff. You know, there it is. Yes." I can still remember pretty much everything. You know, I said it so many times. You know, so many. When you're young, your mind is like a sponge. It just soaks that.
It was such an honor to have the frock and all the stuff on
like that. Oh my goodness gracious!
And then the thing with
the incenser.
The incenser, yeah. Oh my gosh,
Yes. We had everyday black frock with the white.
Yeah.
With the white chasuble, and then. On Sundays, it was a red flag and white, but on special days when they did the real ceremonial, you had a white one with a scarlet cummerbund and a little beanie. You know, we were into ceremony. You know, ceremony. It was part of it. I have to tell you a story about ceremony. This is a Polish parish. It has a main altar and 2 side altars. And usually the mass was at the main altar. The priest came out, usually 4 altar boys. It was plenty of altar boys. Yeah. But every once in a while you'd have a visiting priest. And he would come and he would say a mass at the side altar. But he would say that as a private mass for himself, as part of his obligation. So they said, "John, you work with Father such and such. He's a visiting priest here. You do the mass here at the side altar." And they went out and they started the mass at the main altar with everything. And I walk out with this other priest, and everything's pretty quiet because everybody in the church is following the mass at the main altar. Right in back of me are 2 rows of the nuns, because they came and they went for the first mass. This was 7 o'clock. Anyway, that priest starts doing his thing, and in nomine Patri, Filii, Spiritus Sancti, Amen, Deum qui letificat in tutte meam. Yeah, you went through the whole thing, and now it's time for the consecration, which, as a good Catholic knows, is the most important part of the Mass. This is the part of the Mass where the host, the wafer, is turned into the body of Jesus Christ. Well, as a 6-year-old, you thought the most important part was the ringing of the bell when he knelt down. This is what activated everything.
Yes.
On the main altar, they had lovely fancy electric chimes, bing bong. But on the side altar, they had a little brass bell.
Yeah.
So the first time I had to ring the bell, the priest kneels down. No, he puts his hand over the chalice and like this. I went, and I rang the bell. And he turns around to me and he says, "Don't ring that bell." Holy smoke, don't ring the bell. The bell is the most important thing, you know. Then he kneels down, and this is where he's supposed to ring the bell. I rang the bell. He turns around, and now he says it louder. He says, "Don't ring the bell." Now the nuns are they're seeing there's a little fracas here between this pipsqueak altar boy, you know, and the priest. Now he's ready to raise the host. What am I going to do? So I put the bell down, and I didn't know what to do. So I said, "Ding-a-ling-a-ling-a-ling-a-ling-a-ling-a-ling." I made the dinging sound with my mouth, but because I had to do something. I had to do something. We needed our ceremony. Then the nuns, of course, they started laughing, you know, and the church is laughing, and I started crying because I knew I was going to be in trouble because that's not, you know, that's not what you're supposed to do during the mass. Anyway, that's my story about it.
Some of those times.
Yes.
I have some stories about that time too, but we won't go into that anymore. Let's continue on. And your education, your formal education?
Formal education, went to the grade schools, Catholic grade schools. The nuns taught me. Then I went to a technical high school in Brooklyn, New York. By this time, Dad had saved enough money to put a down payment on an apartment house in Brooklyn. So we moved to Brooklyn, and it was funny. My parents moved to Brooklyn the week that I was in camp. So when I left for camp, I was still living in Manhattan. When I came back from camp, I had to go from the church, take the subway over one stop to Bedford Avenue, and look for my new house there. I'd never been there before. I had the address, and went to technical school there. Went to the community college. In technical school, I studied to be a machinist, and in those days, when you finished, it was 3 years. I mean, you weren't a machinist yet. Of course, you weren't a machinist, but you were well on your way. You had a good education.
Sure.
It was tough. The final test, I remember, was a 2-day test, 4 hours each day. I remember stuff that I had to do for our senior project. One was a bending die to make a little U-shaped bracket, you know, 2 pieces sliding. You know how bending dies work. I made a reamer, a tap. A tap is a piece of it's like a drill, except it's used to make internal threads. You made the tap. You made a big 1-inch twist drill. Mm-hmm. And there were some other things. One of them was a hammer. It came in 2 pieces, and it came apart. It was beautiful. And I'd found it several years ago. It was kind of rusty and stuff. And my daughter was graduating at Georgetown Law School. And I had to get her a present. So I said, if you graduate from Georgetown, you're probably going to wind up as a judge. I see that for you. I'm going to hold that for you. I'm going to hold that thought for you. So I took that hammer, that ball peen hammer was about this big, and I had it chrome plated, and I put it in this beautiful box with little inscriptions saying, you know, when you're on the bench or you're the judge, you'll be able to call the court to order with this hammer that I made in my senior class. I was going to school, but back in 1967, they drafted me. You know, got a letter from Uncle Sam. I don't know. Were you drafted, or did you sign up?
I volunteered because all my other brothers and sisters one was in the Marines, and 2 were in the Navy, and I'm the youngest one, and they didn't want me, so the Army finally accepted me. But I got in at a certain time when I was still considered a World War II vet. Even though combat was over officially, I was in the occupation.
You were in that era.
Yeah, that era,
yeah. Anyway, I was drafted out of school, went to the service. I was both drafted and volunteered. Drafted, and they got me there, but then they kind of put you through that 3-day orientation. There's no sleeping, and they run you through the tests and the shots and the stuff. And then the last thing, pardon me, the last thing that they tell you, well, you know, if if you sign up for another year, we'll send you to any school that you want. Any school that you want. If you don't go to any school that you want, you're probably going to go to infantry school and you're going to be a ground pounder. And you know it's going to be Vietnam for you. And, oh, geez, I don't want to go to Vietnam. Geez, I don't want to go there for love or money. I'll sign up for a school. So I signed up for a machinist school, which I knew because I'd already
been in
for
school.
3 years in high school, 2 years in college. I took machine shop technology. And I breezed through that, and I got 2 promotions out of the school. But that didn't prevent me from getting on the levee to Vietnam. And I think we started on this story. I came on levee to Vietnam, and I'm going home. I used to go home pretty much every weekend because it was close to New York from Aberdeen Proving Grounds. And I told my mom, I said, I'm down on the levee. I'm going to be going to Vietnam. She said, no, you're not. And, Mom, what are you talking about? She said, no, I didn't raise a son. I did not raise my son to have him gone over there, because by that time we'd seen what was going on, in
Sure.
Vietnam. 1967. That was the height of the height of the Vietnam War. But as luck would have it, another one of those things that happened in my life, and I've had so many of these interferences by a higher power. And our Russian friends, my Russian friends, I always called them my Russian friends, they went and invaded Czechoslovakia. Well, as soon as they did that, big red flag comes up. We need to reinforce our troops in Europe. You're off the levee to Vietnam. You're on the levee to go to Germany. And I wound up spending 2 years in Germany with the Army. I loved it because no one was shooting at you. There was nobody taking pot shots at you. It was a great 2 years, a wonderful experience. I was on a team called AMF, Allied Mobile Force, and we would go and do war games. We'd plow everything in the back of a C-141 Starlifter and fly to Greece and set things up and then play around. But nobody was shooting real bullets. In the back of a deuce and a half, there was the little box, and in that box it said 10,000 rounds of this, 20,000 rounds of this, mortars and this. But it was just on paper. It was just on paper. And when it got captured, you went in there and you took the piece of paper out of the box, and that means, hey, we captured this truck. It meant that this truck was no longer going to be able to use it was a simulation. And did this.
What did you do to earn a living after you got through the service?
Oh, I was an engineer. Started out as a draftsman and worked my way up to designer, and then my last job was with a manufacturing firm here in Tigard. No longer exists there in Tigard, so it was called co-manufacturing, and they were very big, and they made sawmill equipment, equipment for sawmills, for plywood mills, for particle board mills. So I worked in the engineering department, designing machinery.
Do you have children?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. I got 3 great kids.
Tell me about them.
I got 3 great kids. I got my oldest daughter, Victoria. We had a big discussion yesterday about 7 o'clock in the morning. She came over the house, and I told her about our little get together here today. She says, "Dad, whatever you do, don't ramble on. Think of what you're going to say. Think about your endpoint. When you get there, stop." Because you have a tendency to ramble. So I'm stopping right now.
How about your political persuasion? Are you left, right, center, or what? Generally speaking,
I'm a left. I'm a liberal, not end of the yardstick. Or liberal, a little bit towards center.
Sure.
I voted for President Obama in this last election. I did that not because I had such great faith in him.
Okay, yes, I hear you. We're going to have to take a break in a minute, but I want to ask you a question first. about any persons from the past or anyone alive today that you particularly admired or look up to? Any inspirational characters that you recall?
Oh yes, I have so many inspirational characters. To this very day, I still have characters. You're an inspirational character to me.
Oh, come on. Thank you. So, all right. So, my director is going to yell at me if we don't take a break. So let's take a break. The mics will be off for a few minutes, and then we'll come back on and talk about some more stuff.
Good.
Break in there, please, Mr. Doctor. So the mics are off. Okay, we're back. Thank you for staying tuned. And for your first-time viewers who missed the opening of the show, Conversations with Dr. Don is an ongoing series of one-hour standalone talk shows where I interview interesting people like my friend John Jacyno here about who he is, and he's a delightful storyteller. And we're going to need a couple more hours to cover everything else he wants to talk about. And anything else that may come up in our discussion. I'm enjoying visiting with you. You're the kind of a guest that it's just fascinating to talk about things as they come up.
You know, I found that everybody has a story.
Yes.
Every single body has a story. Yesterday I was at the gym and I'm walking and I'm doing my laps. And here comes this other gentleman. He was my age and he starts walking with me. And within 10 minutes, I know more about this guy than I do about some of my friends. I mean, he just opened up and he told me things, and I asked him things, and he told me some more, and it made the time go by fast. And I think he was happier when he left because he got a chance to tell his story. And I think every one of us has got that need, and every one of us should not only tell stories but also be a good listener. Be a good listener.
Yeah. Now, in the email you sent me, there were a number of things that you said you could talk about. The things that made me who I am today. Tell me about a few of the things that made you who you are today.
I remember, don't touch the mic. There are just regular, normal people that I interacted in my life. One of them was my first boss. I worked in a butcher store, which is something you don't find here anymore. There's no such thing as butcher stores.
Yeah, that was good to have them.
There were 3 butcher stores that if you stood at the first one, you can take a baseball and hit the second and third one. They were that close.
Yeah,
and there was
fresh
enough
meat.
Fresh meat. The meat would come in halves. The cows would come split in half, and would
Yeah.
bring them in. And you know, over the years that I've worked there, I worked there for about 6 years, I learned how to take that apart, and everything was custom trimmed. Everything was cut by hand. Nothing was, very few things were cut by a saw.
Yeah.
A great experience. I learned something that came in handy. It came in handy many, many times in my life, knowing how to cut meat. It comes in handy today, you know. I'll buy a pig, you know, and take it apart and share it with, split it up with people that's, yeah, we'll go in on a pig. And I cut it up for them, you know, and make chops and steaks and bacon.
Because you know how to do that.
I know how to do that. We made Polish sausage by the ton. We made all the cold cuts. It was, yeah, I'd come start work I started working there when I was 13 years old, and I started work after school. I got there 4 o'clock to 6 o'clock. First thing I did was have a sandwich. When I come from school, have a sandwich. Well, we sell bread. Well, you would get yourself a couple of slices of bread. You walk over to the case, and what looks good today? Oh, a little of this nice imported ham and a little cheese, and you eat that sandwich. And it was an experience, but the real experience came from Mr. Nick Laba. I spoke to him maybe 4 or 5 years ago. I just called him out of the blue, thanked him for what he did for me, and he was the owner, and he took me under his wing, and gave me a job as a kid, which was hard in those days. You know, a 13-year-old. I started when I was 13 years old.
Sure.
As a 13-year-old kid, to get a job that paid real money every week, I would get $22. I got $1 an hour for every.
Wow.
I got for an hour's worth of work, which was 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 Monday through Friday. That was $10, and 12 hours on Saturday. But I learned how to deal with women. I understood women. I knew how to talk to them. Women never frightened me. You know, as a 13-year-old kid, to say, you know, women didn't frighten me. They didn't, because this man told me how to, you know, how to have the poise, how to have the self-confidence to come in and look this woman in the eye and say, you know, that piece that you asked for, it's not really good this week. Let me give you this. You know, let me give you this that personal touch. He says, I remember he told me, he says, a woman comes in here and she wants to buy a pound of liver, and you wrap up a pound of liver. You didn't sell her anything. You just gave her what you wanted. He taught me selling. He taught me how to talk to people. You're having this for a company. Yeah, I think you're going to need a little bit more if you have, you know, just these kind of things. And by the time I was 18, 19 years old, you know, I knew that trade. It was what you had to do. And not only did I do it in English, I also did it in Polish. Because and I did a smattering of Ukrainian and Russian too. But I don't know if I told you, the Polish was the language of the house. So I learned Polish before I knew English. And this was one of the things that he liked about me, because we lived in a Polish neighborhood, you know, and you dealt a lot with Poles. I would say 65, 70% of the people were Polish, you know, and if you could speak the language, boy, you were ahead. And you know, after a while, you made friends with a lot of these people. You know, you'd see them in church, you know, and everybody always, hi, John, hi. And my dad said, where do you know that woman from? Where do you know that woman from? She comes to the store, Dad. I see her every day. He was kind of surprised that I knew so many.
So you're interested in cosmology and quantum physics. I'm not sure I can talk to you about that, but say a few words about it anyhow.
Well, I had to get interested in something. I retired about 10 years ago. I was put out to pasture, so to speak, and I was 55 years old at the time, and I said, you know, maybe I can do this. Maybe I played my cards right up to now. Maybe I can not have to go back to work. And yeah, it worked out for me. I was able to do that. So you have to keep yourself busy with things. You know, I took up going to the club, started playing, playing racquetball. That was one of the things. Cooking was another thing, but I needed something a little bit more stimulating. So I started looking and dabbling in understanding cosmology, which is just the universe the way it is out there.
The
You know,
cosmos.
right. You got cosmology on one end of this the continuum, and then you have quantum mechanics. This is the absolute largest things you can talk about: cosmology, look at, explore, and quantum mechanics, the absolute smallest little things. Anyway, it's just something that I find interesting. It's just like anything else. I certainly am not educated enough to discuss anything with people who are physicists, who are astrophysicists. I can't discuss it with them, you know, because they're much on a much higher plane. But it's enough to keep my interest, and you learn about things. And one of the things when you start looking at how big our universe is, and how tiny. I can't say tiny. I wish there was another word that would describe something even tinier than tiny. You know, we are. You know, we put such great importance on ourselves, and we are just this small little entity. We are these little bacterias running around a blue ball in space. You know, and we think we're so important. It kind of humbles you. And then you start looking at the really, really small things, and it's very counterintuitive. It's very counterintuitive. If, for instance, if you take a look at a atom, you know, it's got a proton, neutron in the middle, and circles with an electron. Well, the distance between the proton and neutron is so vast that if the proton was a speck on this table, the neutron would be 5 blocks away from here. I mean, that's the ratio of space between the electrons and the protons. Anyway, things don't particularly follow Newtonian physics when you get down to those small levels. And right now they're working on this theory of everything. They're trying to take Einstein's laws of relativity, their laws by this gentleman by the name of Heisenberg. They're trying to marry him, and it's just not working 100%. They still have some things to figure out. I certainly am not going to help them with that. They're going to have to do that by themselves.
What's it all about?
Exactly. What's it all about?
Yes.
What's it about?
Do you
Why?
have an answer for me?
Why?
What's it all about?
I suppose you can sit here and talk about it until the cows come home, but it's, for me, it's coming to a realization that I reject organized religion. I reject it. There's just absolutely nothing that I want to do with it. I believe that you can, if you're a practicing Catholic, I would never say anything against you.
Sure.
That's your belief. Oh, that's your, you know, I'm not going to inflict my beliefs on you as long as you don't inflict your beliefs on me. And I have a belief. I believe in a supreme being. I do believe. I don't know where it comes from. I do not have any positive proof for it. Other than I intuit it.
Mm-hmm.
I intuited it.
I have 2 songs that have lingered with me through all the years. Remember the song Alfie?
What's it all about, Alfie?
Yeah. And
Is
I
it just for the
wrote
moment we
on
live?
that in the words, and what's he? Then the other one is Peggy Lee, is that all there is? Remember that?
No, I'm not familiar with that one, no. Is that
all there is? Is that all there is? Well, she's thinking out loud. I guess, I'm not sure she's at the end of her life. She's looking at life and where she is in her existence now, and is that all there is? Well, those 2 songs have haunted me through the years, particularly Alfie, What's It All About?
Remember the lyrics to that?
Is it just for the moment we live?
Yes.
Yeah. What's it all about? What's it all about, Alfie?
And I guess it is for the moment we live.
Living in the moment is a very important part of my philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, I'm right here in this moment. You know, you know what I'm saying? I am totally absorbed in this thing.
Now,
I have to cough, but I don't want to cough into the microphone.
spirituality. What does spirituality mean to you?
To me, it's what it's all about. You know, is this? I know from watching your show and some of your stuff that you are an agnostic or an atheist. I don't. I think that's what you said. I hope I heard. You know.
Skeptic.
Skeptic. Yeah.
Non-believer.
I have to have that. I have to have a supreme being. It just kind of works. In my formula, in my philosophy, I have to have a supreme being. It's certainly not the supreme being in the Old Testament. It's certainly not the supreme being in the New Testament. You know, it's not the God of fire and brimstone and the constant smiting down and killing and drowning, you know, innocent people saying, "I'm sorry." I mean, what an absurd notion of God, that God would kill people. Create them in His image and likeness, and say, "Hey, God, I don't like these people. You know, I'm just gonna." I think religion was made up for being able to control human beings.
But for the first time, I'm considering what is meant by supreme being. What do you mean by a being?
Being, it's just a force, an energy. It's not a corpulent entity like you and I, you know, and not an old man sitting in the sky with a beard looking down on us. Our language sometimes fails us, you know, and right now this is the best I can do to describe it. It's the force that started everything. I cannot come to believe that it all started from nothing. It just doesn't ring true to me. I believe that there was something. What this something is, you know, we call it God, we call it the universe, we call it the supreme being, the enlightened one, whatever. But I have my own conceptions of what God is, and it works for me. And that's all I needed to do. I needed to work for me. I don't need it to work for, you know, 10 billion people around the world. You know, I'm just looking to be happy. I'm just looking to be happy,
Yeah.
and it does.
Let's kind of shift gears a bit.
Sure.
American foreign policy. What do you think of American foreign policy?
I'm conflicted. You know, I'm conflicted. On one side, I really dislike it. Dislike it. You know, I see us doing things, and by doing things, I'm saying every time somebody gets cross with us, we show him, we flex our muscles. You know, we say, "This is, you know, you want to do wrong by us. This is what's going to happen to you." You know, and every once in a while, we'll go and put examples down. You know, and Iraq was the place we set an example. We went there and bombed the P1s out of those people there, killed innocent people, you know, just simply for a show of strength. What was the war in Vietnam all about? What was in Vietnam that we needed? It certainly wasn't oil, was it? You know, it was ideology. We're so afraid of communism that our entire foreign policy was, I'm talking not necessarily from this right now, but from the 1950s on, was how to defeat communism, because communism meant taking the wealth communism, by the way, is not practiced the way it should be in Russia, and never has been practiced there. But communism basically says, "See, take this. This is what we have. Let's split it among all the people equally." Now, does that sound like something that's going on in the United States right now? It's certainly not. And what I'm saying is, we're afraid of that. We're afraid of that. So we had to stop communism, and we take a look at you take a look at Vietnam. How many millions of people we went and killed there simply for an ideology? How can I be behind a foreign policy like that? I can't. But now this is where the conflict comes in. One of the reasons why, and I'm talking now about myself, why I'm well off, and that's a relative term.
Sure,
well
sure.
off, you know, is because America is what it is today. It's the bully on the block, and he's going to get the best of everything. He's going to get the best minerals from this country. He's going to get the best foreign, products in this country. We just have a wonderful. This is a wonderful country in terms of material things, but we are bereft of real morality, I think. Mm. And I'm just as much to blame as a lot of people.
How do we change things?
How do we change things? My goodness, education. That's the only way. Education. Teach the people this is wrong. 5% of the people cannot use 20% of the raw materials. That's what we do.
How do people get educated?
How do they get educated?
By the information available for them, so that this is what they're supposed to learn to become educated. And who's in charge of the education system and the media and those kinds of things that provide what we supposedly need to be educated? The people who are super rich.
That's right.
Who own the media. I'm grinding my axe now.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I'm of the same opinion. I had a theory, and I've had this theory for years and years, that there is a concerted effort by a group of people. Who are these people? I can't point them out to you. I can't give you their name, but I do believe it is their wishes, and it's incumbent to keep a certain part of the population ignorant, because people that are ignorant can be flim-flammed. You can say, well, don't worry about the politics. We'll give you hot rod racing, and we'll give you football on Sunday. We'll give you the basketball league, and we'll give you the baseball league. Occupy the people's mind with trivia, and watch this hand, and you don't know what this hand is doing. This hand is controlling every single thing.
I think that what our country needs is a Bolivarian revolution of North America. You know what the Bolivarian revolution is? Hugo Chavez is in Venezuela.
Mm-hmm.
Look at how he's brought his country to where it is in 10, 20 years. Just incredible there. The literacy rate is way the heck up there, and the people are generally more satisfied with their existence. And even looking at Cuba, that's a socialist state. And we talk about communism, socialism, and capitalism. And those terms are just not good enough anymore for me. You need to have some other words to go along with them, like monopoly capitalism, benevolent capitalism. I'm not sure there's such a thing anymore. And democratic socialism. And Joe Stalin certainly didn't practice a generic version of communism.
There was a guy who knew what he wanted, knew how to do it, and he had no qualms about anything. I had my theory. We sit around, we talk, and what's the best form of government? And I came up with the conclusion that benevolent dictatorship. You have one guy. He's benevolent. He understands. He's not beholden to the corporations. He's just beholden to the people. Makes everything fair. I don't know who that person's going to be, by the way.
You tell the people about And look at that camera there. A final message that you want to give to them right now before we stop, because we're running out of time.
Oh my goodness.
What do you want to say to them?
Live in the moment. Live in the moment. Love your kids. Love your partner. I have a wonderful partner, Karen. I tell you, I love that woman to bits. There's a person you should have on the show. I mean, this is a former director of the Bicycle Transportation Alliance here in Portland. You know, she's into all sorts of things. She'd give you her views on politics.
We gotta have her on.
You're gonna have her, Karen Frost.
It's close to time for us to stop visiting and get ready to say goodnight, so keep your pens and pencils handy, because you may want to jot down something that we'll show you in the closing credits. And public service announcements: to watch my shows on the web, go to my website, www.donbabe.com, and click on favorite links. There's a whole bunch of shows there. I want to tell you about the American Civil Liberties Union, because our civil liberties are slowly going down the tubes more and more by the previous administration and what Obama's doing or not doing. Join the American Civil Liberties Union to protect our civil liberties. The next PSA, please, to get my shows broadcast regularly by your local public access station, go to www.pegmedia.org. And we have another one. We got End Corporate Personhood, Reverse the Citizens United decision. Go to www.pegmedia.org and End Corporate Personhood. And any more? Do we have any more PSAs? Yeah.
Excuse me.
Well, I want to say thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the show as well as we had doing it. And now my favorite thought for the day. My favorite thought for the day is KFC, not Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Oh. Dr.
Don's KFC. Kind, friendly, and charitable. Be kind, and be friendly, and be charitable. To you too. And you too. And you too, Mr. Countryman. And you too, Mike. Thanks again for watching. Good night.